right, interview 0998. Alright, so my first question, we'll start kind of general. What is your definition of a system?
Engineering-wise, a system is just kind of like something that's doing work. There's the surroundings. Those can have a play on it. Depends if it's closed or open or isolated.
Cool. So the reason I asked that is because sometimes in geology we refer to the Earth as like a system. We talk about the Earth system. So in your mind, what would be the components of the Earth system?
Maybe like what the water is doing, the animals in it, maybe the weather too.
Cool. Cool. So I'm going to ask you about some different elements that are important on Earth, so kind of chemistry related.
Okay.
So the first one you probably know a lot about, I'm going to ask you about the element carbon.
Oh, yes.
So where on Earth could we find carbon?
Carbon is in everything. You got carbon dioxide, you have glucose, everything's carbon-based. We're carbon-based. So you're going to find it in everything. It makes up like 98% of us.
Cool. So why is carbon such an abundant element on Earth?
Oh boy. That one's a good one. I don't really know. I just know about carbon.
Cool. So in what ways is carbon important to the Earth itself? Like what kind of important materials contain carbon, or how is it used? Tell me a little bit about that.
Right. I think carbon, you can on a lot of materials and stuff contain carbon, so we're able to carbon date things based off its half-life. I know it's found in a lot of minerals and stuff like that, so yeah.
All right. So you might remember, like way back in like maybe middle school, you talked about like the carbon cycle.
Right.
So can you tell a little bit about some of the ways the carbon moves through the Earth system?
I don't remember too much about the carbon cycle, but I know we do. I'm in biology, so we talk about photosynthesis and how carbon moves from carbon dioxide and glucose and Krebs cycle. We talk about a lot about that. And like cellular respiration. But carbon cycle, I don't remember too much about that one.
Okay.
Specifics.
Okay, so we know it moves through living things.
Yes,
at least.
I do know that.
Okay, cool. So you said whenever we have like photosynthesis, carbon dioxide goes in. And what's that carbon dioxide used for?
It is used, you make ATP, and it's going to come back as oxygen. So it's just a way for the plants to get the nutrition they need, and then for us to get the oxygen that we need.
Cool. And then what are we going to use that oxygen for?
We'll use it for our energy throughout our body, and then once we're done with that, it comes back out as carbon dioxide.
Okay.
So it's just a continuous cycle.
So oxygen comes in, carbon dioxide goes out. Where did that carbon come from that got added onto the oxygen?
Boy. Let me see if I can remember that. I'm trying to think. I don't remember the actual name of it. I just know like the sugar, the different sugars and the enzymes in our body.
Got it. So the carbon that was in the sugar gets hooked onto that oxygen and exits. Okay, cool. Cool, so we have carbon moving through the atmosphere and some living things. Any other ways you can think of that carbon might move?
No.
Okay, you said a lot of like rocks and minerals have carbon in them. Any guesses on how that carbon gets into the rocks and minerals?
I know, let me think. Maybe like through human and plant waste and stuff like that, like fertilization and fermentation. Yeah, not too much about that.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to ask you about nitrogen next.
Okay.
So where can I find nitrogen on Earth?
Nitrogen, I know there's nitrogen gas. Don't know too much about what all contains nitrogen, though.
Okay, cool. So there's a nitrogen cycle also.
I did not know that.
So let's think if we can think through it at all. So you said nitrogen's a gas. Okay, so does that nitrogen gas or nitrogen in general have any uses to anything on Earth, do you think?
I know in like experiments you can use it to like cool down stuff because it's so cold. I'm sure it could be used for kind of like dating and stuff like that too. But as far as the nitrogen cycle, I've never really heard much about that one yet.
Cool. What about phosphorus? Where can I find the element phosphorus on Earth? This will be the last element.
Okay. Yeah, you're really pushing me. Phosphorus, I know that's a mineral too. I think they talk about it in being in water and stuff like that. If there's a phosphorus cycle, I don't know about that one. Yeah.
Okay, so you said it's in minerals, you think it's in water.
Yeah.
Cool. So maybe if we build on that, do you think there's a way that phosphorus can get from water to minerals or vice versa?
I'm sure there is. I mean, everything's typically in contact with each other. Whether it's being passed from like the different animals and stuff that are walking certain ways and carrying things. So yeah, I'm sure everything can kind of like be interrelated and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. So we talked about like biological uses of carbon. Do you think there's any biological uses of nitrogen or phosphorus?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I wouldn't know how, but I would think because that is part of like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and those are the biggest elements that you find here. Don't know how, but
okay.
Yeah.
Or for life somehow. Okay, that's good. What about with any of these elements in like natural systems? Are there any sort of environmental hazards or environmental issues associated with any of these elements?
Oh yeah, I think anything, if you do too much with it, it can have a really harmful effect if you take it out of the span that it's supposed to be in. Carbon, maybe that one's a little harder, but nitrogen I feel like probably could be just because it is so cold. Yeah, if you improperly throw those things away.
Cool. All right. So let's see. We'll do this one next. Okay. So I have a little picture here.
Okay.
So go ahead. The first thing I want you to do, you can use a pen or a pencil, whichever you prefer. Go ahead and anywhere you think there would be carbon, nitrogen, or phosphorus in that picture, you can go ahead and put a C, an N, or a P, and go ahead and just kind of narrate what you're doing.
Okay. So I do know carbon will be in the trees, in the soil, and rabbits. I feel like either nitrogen might be kind of in the clouds and the rain, and that might be kind of where the bad rain comes from. And phosphorus will probably be in the stream. And then, I feel like the sun probably is made of carbon. And there will be carbon in the air because of the carbon dioxide and the oxygen. Yeah, nitrogen is leaving me with some trouble. But yeah, that's what it is.
Puzzling, that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so now the next thing I want you to do is anywhere you think there's a process that would move, like, say, the carbon from one place to another, go ahead and draw an arrow.
Okay.
And if you know, if there's like a name for that process, you can write out what that process is.
Right. So from the tree to the rabbit, you got the photosynthesis and cellular respiration. And with the water and the cloud, that's going to be the big cycle with water condensating, and then the cloud brings the water back down, so you have some exchanging of elements. And I know the sun provides energy, but I don't know if you would call that exchange of elements.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I got.
Fair. Okay. Cool. Alright, so now I'm going to give you a blow. Going crazy, I'll grab that.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you that next sheet of paper, and you can go ahead and do your best for me to draw out your version of the carbon cycle.
Oh boy. Okay. We'll just start with some arrows. That's always a good way to go. I'm going to assume it's kind of like photosynthesis and stuff, where it's going to go throughout the air. Mm-hmm. And then maybe even like the food that we eat, and that's how it gets into us. Mm-hmm. And then because we breathe it out, it goes back into the air. And then I guess also how we produce waste to eat. Yeah, that's what I got.
Okay, that's good. Now, I'll give you the option. Do you think you have anything to draw for the nitrogen cycle? Okay.
I wish I did.
Do you think you have anything to draw for the phosphorus cycle?
No.
Okay. That's fair.
I'm going to totally go home and look that stuff up, though, now that I've been quizzed on it in a sense.
That's good. Well,